Alright, and we are live. Hello everyone. It's not daytime, I just have the light on right here, so I still have to be kind of quiet. I kind of tricked myself because I see the light and I think that it's like 10 a.m. or something, but it's still 1 a.m. But now it's time for the next chapter from excelling at positional chess. And I'm going to go over one game today, so a short little episode. And then I do want to read this page that he has here for us. Pretty much chapter 1 is called Simple Truths, and the idea of this chapter, and I'm reading it for my first time as well, but the idea is that sometimes mistakes that you make in regards to chess, and in life as well, I'm sure, they're like such obvious mistakes that you just brush it off as opposed to actually acknowledging it. Like, let's say, for example, in real life, that you consistently, forget your wallet at home or something, and, you're just like, that's stupid of me, that's stupid of me, each time. Whereas, in actuality, the fact that you forget it, repetitively, time after time, I wouldn't say that necessarily would add up or anything like it would a chess game, like advantages and disadvantages, but eventually there's a time where you have to realize, like, geez, I keep forgetting this thing, and one day I'm going to need it to pay for something. I might get stranded, I might not have my AAA card, whatever it may be, license for a cop, and you get like a ticket for that or some stuff. But yeah, I'm just going to read this little excerpt that he has right here, and we'll go into the one game. And then that'll be it for this episode. So y'all get enough easy with this. Alright. In this chapter, I want to talk about mistakes that are often committed, but so obvious that, when you realize you are guilty of making them, you tend to underplay their importance. The first one is connected to simple evaluation technique. I have a friend who is close to IM level. That's International Master, for anyone who doesn't know. It's like one of the ones right before GM, Grandmaster. He is a really talented player with several norms and an ELO rating that is so close that 2 good games in one day will finally make him an IM. And what norms are is that in order to go from one tier to the next, like from National Master to International Master, International to Grandmaster, however, you need the rating 1 to be of a certain level, and then you also need what's called a norm. And what a norm is that you participated in a tournament with like an average rating that's high enough for you to be considered like a Grandmaster or International Master or whatever. So you may get the rating from beating on like like bad players or something like that. Doesn't exactly prove that you are a Grandmaster level player if you just like beat on the same 1800 level player for like years and years and years. I mean, you'll still get ELO, but you won't be considered a GM. But sorry, that's just a little explanation. Nevertheless, he is violating one of the simplest rules of chess so often that even I notice this as a weakness in his play. This is best illustrated with an example. In one game, he had an ending with 3 extra pawns, a lead in development, and a clearly superior pawn structure. From then on, he played rather carelessly. In order to exchange a few pieces, he gave up a pawn, as well as the momentum of direct attack on the king. Later, he just waited, resulting in his opponent gaining some activity for his pieces and suddenly a few threats. And I just want to relate this back quickly. I know that I was just trolling around in the IRL Blitz chess games, but if you guys recall, in game 2, I had a knight advantage in an endgame, and my opponent had a pawn to make up for it, I believe, and what I did is I sacrificed my knight sloppily so that I could just get my king over to the center of the board, whereas it would be much stronger if I just like positioned correctly and used my knight as a weapon. But it's those kind of things where you like play sloppy when you're ahead, and then all of a sudden you go from being, ahead to not so ahead. And I kind of had to struggle against my dad in that game to come out on top. But later he just waited, resulting in his opponent gaining some activity, for his pieces, and suddenly a few threats. To protect himself, my friend gave up another pawn and found himself in a rook endgame, which was still winning. He concentrated well, but overlooked something, and the endgame was drawn. After the game, he would not hear of misplay in winning position. He would have won had he simply made the correct move on move 50. Well, I often see people drift from comfortable winning positions into difficult winning positions when suddenly winning requires considerable effort and chess becomes hard again. There are very few people in the world who talk about bad positions we know we can draw in the way Kramnik did after his match with Kasparov. Most of us know that we are susceptible to making errors. We misplay our winning and drawn positions again and again. So, in order to make it easy for ourselves, we try to play accurately even when we're 3 pawns up. We do not wait for the opponent to resign, but try to make him do so. Such an approach needs extra effort, but we get used to winning rather than watching the opponent losing. And sometimes we get a full point quickly because our opponent realizes that we are not going to gradually let the victory slip away, and consequently, he tries something desperate. The main mistake my friend committed was to decrease his level of concentration. Although he has suffered presence of mind not to blunder, he still made enough inaccuracies for his position to go from easily winning and to drawn. The following game is an antithesis to my friend's performance, where I concentrate right until the end, making the most of my ability to concentrate. So this is a game which I'm about to go over with you guys, but pretty much the opponent blundered a piece pretty quickly into the game, and rather than this guy just like celebrating like, yep, one game, whatever, which I normally do during my videos, I'll say like, yep, GG, and that'll be the game or something when there's still a lot to play. And that's something that I myself need to definitely work on. I know in my last tournament there were 2 games where I had that kind of victory, where I got super ahead, and I thought, yep, this is done. And then I played sloppily, made more blunders, I had miscalculations, and then one I ended up drawing, and the other one I had to actually lost. The guy made a complete turnaround and beat me. So I, for one, completely understand how these games can go. So it's very important to acknowledge that it happens, and then you could go to fix it. But let me get my mouse. And a guard is actually playing in black. That's the author. And if anyone's going to be attending the tournament or is interested, the tournament in Charlotte that'll be occurring actually has Jacob Agard as like a special guest there, and he'll be doing like book signings and stuff like that. So if anyone's interested, there you go. We got e4, c5, and a 3 and c6. Looks like a Sicilian potentially. d4, cd4. Then we get knight to f6 after here. We get knight c3, e5, 3, e5, pushing him away. Knight d to b5. Remember how I said that you have to annotate which knight it is that's moving when both could go to the same square? That's if everyone's watched the other video. Then we get d6. After d6 we see bishop g5 and a6. That doesn't make sense. g5, a6. Yeah, knight to a3. Then we get b5. He's looking to fork them, obviously, and getting one of them. Bishop takes f6. Then I'm assuming queen takes. No, pawn takes. Pawn takes g6. Then we'll have knight d5 and f5. Knight to d5. What the hell that is. Then f5. Bishop d3. Bishop e6. Queen h5, bishop g7. 5, bishop g7. c3, and then castles. We go c3. Then he castles here. A sharp sideline, but healthy enough is what he writes in the notes. E takes f. We get bishop takes d. What am I missing? Oh, is this move coming? Is that what it is? f6. Yeah, f6. Then we see e4. We have fx g7. Going for the rook now. Get rook to e8, supporting this pawn. And here white has a choice between bishop e2 and c2, but he completely overlooked my intended response to 17. Bishop takes b5. And lost a piece. So we took, we get rook to e5. And the thought process here, if anyone didn't catch it, is that he was probably expecting just for a direct capture just like this, and that then he would be able to take the bishop. But there's a stutter move here where you have a threat level, and because of this threat level, queen has to move away, and then you just pick up the bishop for free pretty much. I mean, you get another pawn out of it, but black is going to be far winning in this position. So queen goes to h6. We get oh, I lost my place, I'm sorry. Yeah, he takes b. Knight takes. So at least got 2 pawns for it, so it's not the end of the... Actually, it does seem like it's the end of the world. Why is it -8? Probably because of development that it's -8. You probably get something like this, something nasty. Yeah, so bishop c4, which is a good move because you're attacking this from both angles. So it's not just easily supported with something like a4, and then you're also preventing this side from castling. Just kind of good all the way around. Knight goes to a3. Now this is getting attacked. And the guy writes in the notes that knight d4, sorry, other knight, if you were to go here, and if you were to capture, and if pawn were to capture, the rook going to g5 would be really strong. But that's why he didn't go there. He went here instead to target this thing. So we get bishop to d3. Just take that little outpost right there, and that's not really going to move. You could try attacking it with this, but the king's not safe yet, so you don't necessarily want to be doing that right now. So we got h4, right? That's the correct order? Yeah. h4, queen b6. I'm just getting on a good diagonal there. Queen goes to d2. Gets to play some defense. And the guy writes, so far it has been easy for black. I concentrated only once and saw a 2-move line, but now it is time to wrap up the full point and put it in the bag. Such a position might very well win by itself, but my lead in development should be enough to tear white's position apart. Now I chose to force him to castle queenside because I had seen a more or less forcing win. So rook a to e8. So now we're going to start charging. So he's forced to castle because of that. He obviously can't go that way because of the bishop. So castle, then we get rook to b8. So you're just switching targets here. Oh, that's really cool actually. He might be able to get some kind of sacrifice in. King takes at the end here. I think this just... Okay, it's not losing yet, but it's like getting close. And he writes, rook a8 would probably have been the choice of many. Right here. Taking that sacrifice, doubling the pawns, and exposing the king is the idea with being able to go here with the queen. Would have probably been the choice of many as a threat rook takes a3, which, yep, force white's queen to go queen to e3, right over here, and to try to trade off the queens. But I do not see a reason for my opponent to make it to an endgame. Not that I had any doubts whether or not I would win, but I did not see it as the strongest option available for me. You can compare it to choosing between winning a pawn and winning a piece. So basically what he's saying there is that if you put the rook here to a8, then the queen is going to get traded off, which is what most people would do because they could easily convert this endgame being a piece up like they are. However, this guy is saying that he would rather maintain pressure on b2 so that he's not able to make this move, and he'd rather go for like a kind of checkmate as opposed to just getting to an endgame and winning that way. Excuse me. Rook to h3. What's this rook? We'll get rook to a5. Again, this idea is not bad. It's the fact that if you were to move that rook to do so, that you would have had the exchange. Now this isn't an option. Rook takes d3, e takes d3. So he had to take the bad trade just to relieve this pressure. And now he could move his knight more freely. We get knight c4. And queen b3. And that's not a hanging, well, it is a hanging queen, but it's a sacrifice because you get to checkmate him right here. And I think we're reaching the end of the game. Yep, so there's only a few more moves. So we have queen takes d3. Since this is not protected, he thought that he could do so. However, he is kind of mistaken. Rook takes a2. And then you have rook to e1. And knight to e5. And I mean, there's just no surviving what you have going on right here. He's kind of only being protected right here by the knight. So he's looking to threaten the knight or the queen. And then he's able to make this move, and that would be the checkmate. So after that, the guy did resign. And the ideas in this chapter weren't necessarily positional ideas, but more so that once you're ahead, do not let up, essentially. And I know that Gino Auriemma, if anyone knows who that is, he's a famous women's basketball coach from the Yukon Huskies, but he had kind of the same idea. He just like completely obliterated his opponents and never gave up. Like he didn't put in subs, he didn't like, you know, practice bench players or anything. He just had the thought process that you just never let up, and by doing so, I mean you're able to never accidentally throw away games. And yeah, that's kind of all this first chapter is about. And obviously he has more examples than just that one, but he's got more examples of like winning one games. Because there's no point in us learning about other positional concepts if we can't even, you know, 100% win the games that we're supposed to be winning right now. But that's all for that video. If it was boring to you, I apologize, but for me personally, it was quite helpful. And I just hope to see you in the next video. Have a good one.